The air in Renaissance Rome was thick, carrying the scent of incense and political rot. We often view the past through idealized filters, seeing only the marble sculpture and the sublime frescoes. Yet beneath the gold leaf veneer of the late 15th century, a terrifying truth was concealed. A dynasty that treated the papacy not as a divine calling, but as a meticulously engineered instrument of power. This is the secret history of the Borgias. The story begins far from Rome, in the dusty Spanish province of Valencia. The future Pope Alexander VI, then known as Rodrigo de Borja, was a man whose ambition eclipsed his piety from an early age. His uncle, Pope Calixtus III, elevated him rapidly, but Rodrigo's ascent was not through grace, but through pure, calculating political acumen. By the time he became a cardinal, he was one of the wealthiest men in Italy, a master strategist whose opulent residences and scandalous private life were already whispered about in the shadowy confessionals of the city. The true secret of the Borgia rise lies in the papal conclave of 1492, the year Rodrigo was elected Pope Alexander VI. Historians often acknowledge the political maneuvering, but fail to truly grasp the sheer scale of the corruption involved. This was not a friendly exchange of favors. It was a brazen, transactional auction of the holiest office in Christendom. Rodrigo Borgia had spent years amassing staggering wealth and leveraging ancient debts. He didn't just buy votes, he bought entire cardinals, showering gold, lands, abbeys, and even entire principalities upon the College of Cardinals. A cardinal named Ascanio Sforza, a powerful figure whose vote was critical, was secured not with a mere bribe, but with the gift of 4 mule loads of silver and the crucial vice-chancellorship of the Church, a position of unparalleled financial influence. The election was a performance of piety, concealing a masterpiece of transactional politics. When the white smoke finally rose, it was not the Holy Spirit that had prevailed, but the most powerful purse in Europe. With Rodrigo on the throne of St. Peter, the curtain was raised on a new era. The man who was now Christ's vicar on earth was already a father several times over. The existence of his children, especially the formidable quartet of Cesare, Juan, Gofre, and the infamous Lucrezia, was not merely a personal scandal. It was the foundation of his papal policy. Alexander VI's deepest and most dangerous secret was his dynastic vision. He sought to transform the papal states into a hereditary Borgia kingdom, blending the authority of the Church with the brute force of a secular monarchy. This secret aim dictated every move. The Vatican became a family court, where the Pope's children were openly installed in positions of power, shattering the long-standing pretense of clerical celibacy and moral sanctity. The world saw a pope issuing decrees. The secret truth was that a father was building an empire for his bloodline, weaponizing the divine sanction of the papacy to achieve purely earthly and very dark goals. This unprecedented level of ambition, cloaked in the sacred vestments of the Church, is the necessary context for everything that followed. The poison, the murder, and the manipulation that are forever bound to the name Borgia.
The second, deeper secret of the Borgia regime lay in the calculated cruelty of its enforcers, primarily the formidable son, Cesare Borgia. Where Alexander VI provided the divine sanction and the financial backing, Cesare supplied the unwavering, brutal efficiency necessary to turn dynastic dreams into territorial reality. He was not merely a military commander, he was the executioner of the Borgia vision, moving through the fractured political landscape of Italy like an elegant, unstoppable force of nature. Before becoming a general, Cesare was a cardinal, a religious office he despised and eventually resigned from, a rare and scandalous move sanctioned by his own father. This transition, from the crimson robes of the church to the blood-red armor of the field, epitomizes the Borgia's ruthless flexibility. He embodied Machiavelli's ideal, a man who understood that power must be based on both affection and fear, but primarily fear, because men are less careful about injuring a man who seeks to be loved than one who seeks to be feared. Cesare's campaigns in the Romagna were masterpieces of military strategy married to psychological terror. His objective was not just to conquer independent city-states, but to neutralize the chaotic and constantly shifting loyalties of the local nobility, the condottieri. The prevailing system of warfare relied on mercenary captains whose allegiance could be bought and sold overnight. Cesare understood that true power required eliminating this instability entirely. His most chilling secret weapon was not artillery, but the elimination of potential rivals through calculated, politically motivated assassinations. The most infamous, yet carefully obscured event was the fate of his own younger brother, Juan, the Duke of Gandia, in 1497. Juan was Alexander VI's favorite, a weak, dissolute man entrusted with key military command. His sudden disappearance, his body later found floating in the Tiber River, was officially blamed on unknown assassins motivated by robbery or personal vendetta. The true, terrifying secret, whispered only in the deepest shadows of the papal court, pointed directly at Cesare. Juan's existence was an impediment to Cesare's military command and his status as the Pope's primary secular heir. The removal of Juan was not a crime of passion, but a surgical removal of an obstacle to the Borgia dynastic plan. The Pope, heartbroken but politically astute, immediately accepted the official narrative, effectively covering for the possibility of his surviving son's fratricide. The disappearance of Juan served as a profound warning. Even within the Pope's own family, opposition to the ultimate goal was fatal. Following this, Cesare employed a chilling, sophisticated method of political cleansing. After conquering rebellious territories, he would initially allow a local despot or cruel governor to rule, inciting the populace to hatred. Once the region was sufficiently unified in its misery, Cesare would swoop in, executing the hated governor publicly and declaring that he was restoring justice. This tactic, best exemplified by the notorious fate of his lieutenant, Ramiro de Lorca, was brilliant. It simultaneously terrified the nobility, silenced dissent, and earned Cesare the temporary, crucial affection of the common people. The Borgias ruled not just through the threat of the cross, but through the systematic, cold-blooded application of calculated terror, a secret language of power that only the most ruthless understood. The third, and perhaps most alluring, secret of the Borgia court was its masterful, almost theatrical use of culture, diplomacy, and the manipulation of gender roles, personified by Lucrezia Borgia. Often dismissed in popular history as merely a venomous femme fatale, the truth of Lucrezia is far more complex and politically illuminating. She was not simply a pawn or a poisoner. She was the crown jewel of the Borgia dynastic ambition, a living political treaty whose beauty masked a chilling practicality. Alexander VI utilized Lucrezia's marriages to consolidate and expand the papal domain, effectively cementing alliances through her fertility and dowry. Her life became a sequence of politically expedient unions and rapid strategic widowhoods. Her first marriage, annulled on legally questionable grounds, cleared the path for her second and most famous political coupling with Alfonso of Aragon, Duke of Sicily, the illegitimate son of the King of Naples. This alliance was critical to balance the rising power of the French in Italy. The brief period of peace and stability this marriage offered evaporated the moment the political winds shifted. When Alexander VI decided to align the Papal States with France, Alfonso of Aragon became an unbearable liability. The most profound secret surrounding Lucrezia's court is the cold, calculated sequence of events leading to Alfonso's death. He was first attacked by masked men on the steps of St. Peter's Basilica, a clear, yet officially unsolved attempt on his life. Lucrezia, reportedly distraught, nursed her wounded husband back to health in the Apostolic Palace. But the fate of Alfonso was already sealed by the demands of the Borgia policy. The whispers from that time suggest that Cesare Borgia, impatient with the slow pace of the recovery and perhaps the potential scandal of a botched public murder, finished the job. Alfonso was strangled in his sickbed, possibly by Cesare's notorious henchman, Michelotto Carella. Lucrezia, barely 20 years old, found herself a widow for the second time, her reputation irreparably stained, yet her political value intact. The Borgias were masters of narrative control. The official story attributed the murder to personal vendettas, effectively silencing any accusation of papal involvement. The true secret was the message conveyed to all of Europe. Alliances with the Borgias were temporary, but the Borgia family's survival was absolute. Following Alfonso's death, Lucrezia was quickly maneuvered into her third and final marriage to Alfonso I d'Este, heir to the powerful Duchy of Ferrara. This was the pinnacle of Alexander VI's dynastic success, securing a powerful and wealthy stronghold in northern Italy for his lineage. Crucially, in Ferrara, Lucrezia transformed. She shed the immediate influence of the Vatican's dark court and embraced her role as a duchess, becoming a patron of the arts, a respected administrator, and a stable political figure. The greatest irony, the secret that reframes her entire narrative, is that the woman reviled across Europe as a sorceress and poisoner found genuine peace and legitimacy away from the sacred halls of Rome. She used the lessons in diplomacy and ruthlessness she learned from her father and brother to govern wisely, demonstrating the political skills she was never credited with. Lucrezia was the human face of the Borgia machine, the symbol of their manipulative brilliance, who, ultimately, found a form of redemption and respect only after she was removed from the dark epicenter of their power.
The fourth and most closely guarded secret of the Borgia regime lay within the very fabric of their administration, their unparalleled mastery of finance and spiritual commerce. The power they amassed was not solely military or political, it was fundamentally economic, utilizing the sacred mechanisms of the Church as instruments of wealth extraction and war funding. When Alexander VI assumed the papacy, the Roman Curia was already accustomed to simony, the buying and selling of ecclesiastical privileges. The Borgias elevated this practice to an industrialized art form. The true scandal was not the act of selling offices, but the sheer volume and speed with which these high-ranking positions were liquidated. Alexander VI would create a new batch of cardinals, sell the positions for enormous sums, often 50,000 to 100,000 ducats each, and then, once the coffers were full, the men themselves would mysteriously disappear. This dark cycle was achieved through the insidious use of poison, a substance known as Cantarella, the recipe for which was one of the Borgia family's most protected secrets. When a wealthy cardinal or official died suddenly and mysteriously, their assets and their now vacant, highly saleable office would revert directly to the apostolic camera, the papal treasury. This practice was so common and so clearly correlated with the immediate need for war funds, particularly Cesare's costly campaigns in the Romagna, that it earned one wry nickname, a pleasant banquet. The true historical secret is that the Borgias effectively operated an insurance scam, where the premiums were spiritual offices and the payout was sudden death. Beyond the sale of cardinalates, the Borgias engineered another vast stream of income, the commodification of faith
through the sale of indulgences. While indulgences were not new, Alexander VI systematized their distribution and marketing. He declared a jubilee year in 1500, drawing pilgrims from all over Europe, each of whom paid for spiritual benefits. He also established and sold indulgences for crusades against the Turks and various other causes, channeling enormous amounts of spiritual goodwill directly into gold to finance his worldly wars. Furthermore, the Borgias controlled the movement of grain and goods, effectively creating monopolies that regulated the Roman economy. They manipulated prices, granted exclusive licenses, and levied exorbitant taxes on the city and surrounding territories. The accumulation of immense personal wealth by the family, especially Alexander and Cesare, was not an accidental byproduct of their rule, it was the entire purpose. The church's power was leverage, its doctrines were currency, and its officials were assets to be managed and, when necessary, liquidated. This chilling financial secret reveals the heart of the Borgia pathology. They saw no conflict between the sacred and the profane, only opportunities for profit. They treated the entire apparatus of the Roman Catholic Church, with its ancient spiritual authority, as the ultimate highly lucrative political and financial corporation, with the Pope himself serving as the cunning and utterly ruthless chairman of the board. The ultimate, unavoidable secret of the Borgia saga is the catastrophic swiftness of their collapse and the precise mechanism of their fall, the reversal of their own weapon. The entire Borgia empire, built on the foundations of ambition, poison, and dynastic marriages, was terrifyingly dependent on one fragile life, that of Pope Alexander VI. For 11 years, Alexander VI had been the indispensable core, the man who consecrated the corruption and directed the violence. Cesare Borgia, despite his military brilliance and ruthless efficiency, was nothing without his father's immense divine authority and the endless flow of church funds. Cesare's dream of carving out a centralized, secular kingdom in central Italy, a model of the modern state, was nearing completion in the early 1500s, but it was a structure held together by the Pope's political gravity alone. The reckoning came in August 1503. Alexander VI and Cesare Borgia attended a dinner at the home of Cardinal Adriano Castellesi, a wealthy prelate who, incidentally, knew the peril of his position under the Borgia financial scheme. Shortly after the dinner, both the Pope and Cesare fell violently ill with high fever and severe gastrointestinal distress. Within days, on August 18, 1503, Alexander VI was dead. The official cause of death was malaria, a common ailment in Rome's humid summer. However, the true historical secret, fueled by the highly suspicious circumstances and the long history of Borgia assassinations, is that they were likely poisoned. The widely circulated rumor was that the Borgias themselves, intending to poison Cardinal Castellesi to seize his assets, accidentally drank the wine meant for him. This anecdote, whether entirely true or merely symbolic, speaks volumes. The family was undone by the very weapon they had perfected and wielded for a decade. The Pope's death instantly shattered their political control. The sight of Alexander VI's decomposing body, said to have swelled so unnaturally that it barely fit into his coffin, a detail that amplified the rumors of poison, was a physical manifestation of their dissolved power. With the Pope gone, the College of Cardinals, the same men who either feared or despised him, moved immediately to strip Cesare of his command. Cesare, severely weakened by the illness, which he survived, perhaps due to his younger age and strength, was left politically crippled. He could neither control the papal conclave nor maintain the loyalty of his mercenary captains, whose contracts were contingent on the Pope's money. The new Pope, Pius III, who lasted less than a month, and then the formidable Julius II, Alexander VI's great rival, Giuliano della Rovere, immediately focused on dismantling every piece of the Borgia regime. Julius II, a powerful military leader himself, initially cooperated with Cesare to secure his own election, only to betray him the moment the papal tiara was secured. Cesare was stripped of his titles, his fortresses, and his army. Hunted, imprisoned, and eventually forced to flee Italy, his brilliant political machine collapsed with the same chilling finality as his father's life. He met his end ignominiously in 1507, fighting a skirmish in Navarre, far from the power centers of Rome, a soldier of fortune rather than the prince of Italy. The Borgia legacy, therefore, is not just a tale of depravity, but a profound secret about the nature of absolute power. Their story reveals that a dynasty built entirely on coercion, corruption, and the singular, terrifying charisma of one family can be undone by a single, accidental drink, proving that no amount of secular ambition, even when dressed in sacred vestments, can ultimately defy mortality. The shadows they cast over Rome vanished the moment the central light, Pope Alexander VI, was extinguished.